Back in the year 1430, the Earth was invaded by strange beings. Humans first worshipped them as angels, but the demons saw them as enemies and fought back. Eventually, humans realized the threat these so-called angels really were, and so they began to fight alongside the demons, who were once their enemies. The battle was intense, with human knights facing the angels up close and personal. One of the knights manages to bring one of the giant angels crashing to the ground, but victory came at a high price, with many fallen warriors littering the battlefield. It's at this moment that the Holy Knight, Jean, wonders if they've defeated them all. But as she looks to the horizon, she spots a gigantic gate appearing out of thin air. The gate was immense, standing out against the war-torn landscape. Suddenly, the doors begin to creak open, releasing a blinding light. Jean is completely stunned, having no idea what's going on. A giant hand then starts pushing the door open from the inside. All the soldiers look up in terror, and Jean can't believe what she's seeing, because from inside the gate emerges a being even larger and more imposing than the others. The human and demon soldiers panic at the sight of the new giant angel. Jean is also terrified, screaming that she's never seen anything that huge. The giant angel then gathers a purple energy, preparing to attack. He unleashes a powerful blow, but Jean holds her ground in the middle of the explosion. The angel then cracks a seriously creepy smile, as if he's enjoying himself. The soldiers lose all hope, thinking it's finally over, but Jean grips her sword tightly, showing she's not about to give up. She yells that it's not over yet, because the Demon King is on his way to help. One of the demons agrees, saying they just need to hold on until he arrives. Even the humans are now rooting for the Demon King to show up and take down the angel. However, the angel doesn't waste any time and charges at the soldiers on the ground. The monster starts to charge a strange, glowing power in its eyes. Seeing this, Jean desperately screams for everyone to dodge the attack. The angel then fires two powerful beams of light right at them. The attack hits dead on, and several soldiers are disintegrated by the blast. Jane watches in horror as the light consumes her comrades. A massive explosion sweeps across the battlefield, leaving nothing behind. But something mysterious falls from the sky, crashing violently to the ground. The giant angel is taken by surprise and looks pretty ticked off by the interruption. Meanwhile, Jean shields herself from the blast, bracing for the worst. But when she opens her eyes, she realizes she's been saved by a purple shield, because right in front of her, an imposing figure emerges from the dust. The knight then breaks into a smile, because her backup has finally arrived, and the one who appears is a man in dark armor with long, white hair. He then tells everyone that they held on tight and did a good job. This is the Demon King, Dantirio, and he says to leave the rest to him. Jane, with a smile on her face, complains that it took him long enough to get there. Our protagonist just gives a little smirk at her comment. The human soldiers are relieved and thank him, even though he's a demon. And now, everyone cheers for the Demon King as he floats in front of the giant angel. The giant angel stares down our protagonist, who flies toward him without fear. Don Tirio then says he's gonna make the angel pay for hurting his men, and so he concentrates a large amount of purple energy in his hands. Our hero charges full speed ahead and lands a powerful kick right in the angel's face. The creature is surprised by the force of the attack, clearly not expecting it. Suddenly, a sinister shadow appears and lunges toward the monster. The angel is sliced into several pieces by dark, razor-sharp claws. The soldiers are dumbfounded by the Demon King's surreal power. However, the angel's pieces begin to reassemble in mid-air. Not only that, but he starts to grow, becoming even bigger than before. The monster seems to be in pain as its body contorts and transforms, and in just a few seconds, he takes on a much more muscular and bizarre form. Our protagonist watches it all with a serious and focused expression. The angel then takes advantage of his new power and throws a punch with full force. Jean screams Dantirio's name, terrified of what might happen. The giant angel manages to grab Dantirio, squeezing him with all its might. But our hero says that wasn't half bad and reveals he's still got a card up his sleeve. Right after, he creates some really strange magic circles on the monster's hand. Then, our guy yells and unleashes an absurd amount of purple energy. This magic explodes with full force, making the angel let go from the pain. The creature screams in agony, not expecting such a powerful counter-attack. Dantirio then cracks a smirk, showing that the fight is far from over. The angel grinds its teeth in anger, looking like it's gearing up for something serious, because suddenly, he creates golden magic circles and starts charging up power. And high above, a golden, winged figure appears, looking incredibly powerful. The giant angel then prepares to launch a devastating attack from above. Next, a giant pillar of golden light descends from the heavens with immense force. Our protagonist is hit head on and seems to feel the weight of the blow. The golden light is so intense it illuminates the entire battlefield. Jean and the soldiers watch the whole thing, completely shocked by the scene. Seeing the devastating attack, Jean yells for everyone to hit the deck immediately. A moment later, an explosion of golden light consumes the entire battlefield. As the smoke begins to clear, you can't see a thing with any clarity. Jin protects herself on the ground, her eyes shut tight from the blinding light. But as she peeks one eye open, she notices the sky has suddenly gone dark. She's confused, not understanding what's happening in the middle of the battle. The giant angel then floats in the air, observing the destruction it caused. Turns out, the survivors were saved by a purple barrier at the bottom of the crater. The angel's power was so absurd that it left a massive hole in the ground. Jean then gets up and worriedly asks about Dantirio's whereabouts, because our protagonist is right in front of the angel, holding back its attack. He even compliments the angel's strike, saying it wasn't bad at all. The monster then gives a sinister smile, revealing a hole in its chest. Dantirio's attack had gone right through its body, hitting it dead center. Our hero is surprised, as he didn't expect the angel to pull a move like that. Jean notices something's off, and sees that our protagonist is breaking a sweat. The giant angel ignores the hole in its chest, and is already prepping a second attack. And without wasting a moment, it launches another, even stronger pillar of golden light. Dantirio tenses up and Jean yells that the attack is too fast to dodge. The angel seems to know that if they aren't defeated right now, the entire world will be doomed, which is why our hero looks dead serious. Then, our protagonist suddenly calls out to Jean. She gets worried and asks if he's okay after taking that hit, but Dantirio remains standing in front of the angel to protect everyone. Our hero then tells her to listen very carefully to what he's about to say. Jean and the other soldiers have a very tense look on their faces, because he asks her to take care of the humans, and the demons too. The knight is left totally confused, wondering what he meant by that. A moment later, a sphere of pink energy envelopes Jean and carries her away. Meanwhile, our protagonist braces himself to take the hit all alone. Suddenly, a pink energy starts carrying the soldiers away from the fight. And not just them, but Jean is also caught and lifted safely into the air. She then realizes what's happening and starts to panic inside her bubble because our protagonist has been left alone to face the angel head on. He then says he didn't want to have to use this technique, but he has no choice, and so a white energy begins to flow from his body, forming a seal on the ground. Jane screams for Dantirio to wait, not wanting to leave him behind. She says with absolute certainty that she'll stay by his side until the end of the battle. But a tear rolls down her face because she knows there's nothing she can do. Our hero then reveals that it was because of her that he started protecting humans. And finally, he says his goodbyes and tells her they'll meet again in the next life. Our guy's body explodes in a flash of light, and Jean screams his name in despair. The explosion is so powerful it consumes the giant angel and the entire battlefield. They both scream in pain, and our hero repeats that they'll see each other in the next life. Jean is then set down safely, pondering Dantirio's last words. And just like that, our hero's image slowly fades into the light, Jean can't hold back her tears over the loss of her great friend. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the universe, a strange light appears on Earth. Because our protagonist's soul is now falling into an endless abyss. But suddenly, a golden light envelopes him and takes him to a different place. This light then swoops down toward a hospital in a large city. Inside, a young man is lying unconscious in a hospital bed. Suddenly, a book falls from his face, and he slowly begins to wake up. And as he opens his eyes, he's confused because he doesn't recognize where he is. Our guy then sits up in bed, startled by the unfamiliar surroundings. He looks at his hand and wonders if the sacrifice worked, and what this body is. His expression is one of pure confusion, as he definitely wasn't expecting this. Then, his former Demon King self wonders if he's become a human, and now, our protagonist is in the body of a young man, with no clue what's going on. The scene now shifts completely to a modern, well-lit hospital. Our hero is in the body of a second-year student named Mizukami Daya, and looking out the window, he sees a magnificent city and wonders if the threat of the angels is over. To get a better handle on the situation, our guy decides to peek into the body's memories. He then sees flashes of a happy childhood alongside his parents, who loved him very much. But that happiness didn't last forever, because at some point, his parents passed away, and this left young Daya completely devastated, crying nonstop. To make matters worse, he was suffering a lot at the hands of other students at school, where he was used as a punching bag for them to test their abilities, and the bullies seemed to get a real kick out of the poor kid's suffering. In a moment of desperation, Daya holds a suspicious-looking pill in his hand. The kid was at his breaking point and couldn't take all the pressure anymore. Suddenly, a very powerful purple energy explodes from within his body, and he can't control this power, which consumes him completely. Finally, young Daya collapses on the floor, weak and totally exhausted. Our hero then shows a very determined and cold look. He looks at his hands and thinks about everything that's happened. Leaving the hospital, our guy finds himself in the city. But something seems to be bothering our protagonist. He walks through the streets and finds everything way too peaceful around there. However, he hears some strange noises coming from an alley, and there, he finds some bullies cornering a poor kid. The leader of the group then flashes a very sinister and mocking smile. Our protagonist immediately recognizes the guy from the memories. He remembers the bullies yelling at him not to fight back, and the poor kid getting beat up without being able to do a thing. They then kick the guy mercilessly on the alley floor, and they complain that without Daya, they have no one to take their stress out on. The leader, Yamazaki Kyu, grabs our hero and calls him cocky, but our guy easily grabs his wrist, surprising him. Kaio is surprised and yells Mizukami's name, not believing what he's seeing, because he feels an absurd amount of strength and can't move his arm at all. Then our hero shoves him with ease, sending him flying. Yamazaki hits the ground, completely confused by the unexpected situation. The other kid uses the opening to run for it, clearly terrified. Our protagonist then asks if he was the one who cornered Mizukami Daya. Kai is confused and shoots back, asking if he isn't Mizukami himself. But our hero yells that he's wrong, because he is the Demon King, Dantirio. The bully gets a totally blank look on his face, not understanding a single thing, and a moment later, he and his buddy start laughing their heads off at our guy. Our hero gets annoyed and wonders if his name wasn't passed down through the generations. Yamazaki then mocks him, asking if he went crazy after his near-death experience. However, our protagonist just stands there without showing any reaction. Seeing this, the bully gets ready to fight and unleashes an aura of power, and with a ball of light in his hand, he tells our guy not to get so full of himself. Yu launches a beam of light right at our hero, but Dantirio dodges the attack without even breaking a sweat. The blast of energy then flies past him and hits the ground. The bully's jaw drops, unable to believe the scene. Our guy then says the attack was flashy, but lacked any real power. Suddenly, a female voice gets everyone's attention, and the person who arrives is Sakurabawa Sahi, a second-year student. The bullies get scared and wonder what the top student is doing there. She then walks over and stands next to our protagonist. Asahi tells Yamazaki to go train instead of messing around, but the bully gets angry and tells her to stay out of it. She just sighs, clearly not intimidated by the threat. Our hero then tells her to step back because he'll handle the rest. Asahi gives a little smile and looks like she's holding the strap of his bag. Dantirio thanks her for the help, but says the bully has business with him. Asahi is pretty confused by our protagonist's attitude. Dantirio then says he has business with the bully and calls him out. Caillou gets ticked off and tells our hero to bring everything he's got. And without wasting a second, he lunges forward to land a punch right in his face. But our guy catches the blow with just one hand, effortlessly. He then spins him in the air with an absurd and impressive amount of force, and then he hurls him high into the air, like it was nothing. Asahi's jaw hits the floor at our protagonist's surreal strength. Caillou lands face first on the ground, and his friends start to panic. The bully gets up in pain, not understanding what just happened, so he tells his friends to get our hero. All at once, the guy with purple hair creates a ball of energy and gets ready, and he launches a powerful blast in our protagonist's direction. Asahi yells for him to watch out for the incoming attack. The hit lands dead on, and the bullies celebrate their victory. The bully has a look of shock on his face, not believing what happened, because when the smoke from the explosion clears, our hero is still standing. He then appears holding the attack and asks if this is some kind of child's play. The bully's friends panic, and Caillou is just stunned on the ground. Asahi is also surprised, because he blocked magic without using any spells. Our protagonist then says he's going to show them a little something, and with a wicked grin, he says he'll teach them how to use real magic. The other bullies yell that this is bad and warn Yamazaki of the danger, but Caillou is still fuming and refuses to accept defeat. He gets ready again because he can't lose to a guy like Mizukami, and with a powerful kick, he yells at our hero not to get so cocky. In response, our guy launches a dark magic spell right at him. His eyes glow with power, showing that the tables have turned, because he remembers how the old Mizukami used to get beaten up relentlessly, and in the past, all he could do was beg for the bullies to stop. But the bully just scoffs and says he doesn't know what he's talking about. And with a psycho smile, he yells that Mizukami will be his punching bag. Our protagonist then gets ticked off and calls the guy a spoiled brat. He then launches a sphere of dark magic right into Caillou's stomach. The bully is shocked, not expecting such a fast and direct attack. With a cold stare, our hero just watches the result of his strike. Asahi and the other bullies' jaws drop at the unbelievable scene, because the blow sends Yamazaki flying with incredible force. His friends run off in terror, calling him a monster without a second thought. But our hero says that's nothing compared to the pain Daya felt. Asahi then walks up and comments that she's never seen a magic circle like that. And, very curious, she asks who he really is. Anyway, our protagonist turns to her and looks at her seriously, and without hesitating, he says that he is the great demon king, Dantirio. The girl gets a completely blank look on her face, not understanding a single thing. Asahi is pretty confused by the whole demon king story and questions him. The girl then eyes him suspiciously, trying to figure out if he's lying, but looking at her, our protagonist is reminded of his old friend, Jane. However, he suddenly senses a strange presence and realizes it's an angel, and high up on a building, an angel with white wings is watching them from afar. The creature then reveals its black wings and a very sinister smile. Sensing the danger, our hero and Asahi get ready for a fight. However, the angel simply vanishes, leaving only a few feathers falling behind. The two of them just stare at the sky, completely clueless about what just happened. Turns out, our hero now studies at a place called the Angel Suppression Team Training School. And for this school, only the most promising youths with the greatest magical power from across the nation are gathered, because their main goal is to learn the skills necessary to combat the angels. The scene then takes us to a gym where all the students are gathered for an announcement, and there, A very buff instructor explains that the power measurement will affect their grades and their enlistment. Meanwhile, Asahi is watching our protagonist and thinking that she let him get away the other day, but she's determined to uncover the secret behind Mizukami Daya's power. Suddenly, a random student shoves everyone aside and yells that he's going to be number one. The guy runs past our hero, who doesn't even care and keeps his serious expression, and so he steps onto a platform with a magic circle to begin his power measurement. The student then yells and unleashes a large amount of energy. Thinking he's the strongest one there, the machine then beeps and shows the number 1006, and everyone is surprised because it's the first time someone other than Asahi has achieved that. Our protagonist just watches the panting guy and thinks about how fragile his magical power is. He then reflects that if this is the level of the strongest, it can only mean the world has become peaceful. A moment later, it's our hero's turn, and everyone looks at him with great anticipation. The student who was showing off now taunts our hero, who returns the smile. Then Dantirio raises his hand and says with complete confidence that he's next. The other students whisper and doubt him, betting on a low score. Walking up to the machine, our guy finds the device interesting. Since they didn't have this back in the day, his rival then scoffs, asking if it's turned into a history lesson since all he does is study. This taunt ticks off our protagonist, who glares at him very seriously, because he remembers the old Mizukami studying for hours alone in the library. In his memories, he found everything difficult until he heard his mother's voice offering to help. He remembers calling out for her in a moment of desperation. The memory of his mother helping him when he was a child comes to his mind, but the image fades, and he finds himself alone again in the dark library. He tried so hard to learn that he even cried over his books, back in the present. Dantirio is furious with the guy who would never understand that pain. Our hero then steps onto the platform, and a purple energy starts to leak from him. And out of nowhere, an immense, dark aura explodes, shocking everyone in the gym. The energy then subsides, and all the students are staring at our hero. Asahi and the others are completely confused by what just happened, because the machine beeps and displays a result of 10,882. His rival gets angry and yells that the machine must be broken, for sure. However, Asahi wonders if he released a massive amount of magic for just a second. The instructor thinks the equipment broke and asks our guy to test it again. Other students start to whisper about his impressive score, and they comment that even among official members, few surpass 10,000. Our protagonist then realizes that only one person truly felt his power, but he says he doesn't need to move, because he's going to show them everything slowly. Right after, he stretches and relaxes with a very superior air, and with a smirk. He seems to be enjoying the situation. Suddenly, his eyes glow blue, and he gives a very sinister smile. The machine goes haywire, and the numbers shoot up to 45,000, shocking everyone. The rival yells that it's broken, but Asahi says it's not, because that's the real deal. Asahi then realizes his magical power is so vast that no one can even sense it, and the machine overloads at 99,000 and explodes into pieces. The other students get scared and run away from the explosion. Our hero then scoffs at the situation, calling the device a fragile toy. All his classmates are left with their jaws on the floor, unable to believe what they saw. The instructor then cancels the measurement and says they'll do it again another day, but suddenly an alert pops up, warning that an angel has appeared in Tama City. The students get tense, because the monster is very close by. Our guy's rival celebrates, because he'll finally get a real fight. Asahi also looks very determined and gears up for the battle ahead. Meanwhile, our protagonist just watches everything with a little smirk. The scene then takes us to a busy, fog-filled street in the city. There, two children are walking peacefully, unaware of any danger nearby, until the little boy points to an angel from his school book on top of a building. His mother panics, and the angel prepares to descend and attack. The angel flies straight for the poor little boy on the ground. The creature then grabs the boy, and his mother screams his name, Yuta, in despair. But our hero's rival arrives, just in time, and launches a spell at the monster. The student boasts about his shot, and gets all cocky about his move. However, the attack has no effect, and the smoke clears to reveal not a single scratch. The angel then charges at him with a very sinister and intimidating smile, and with a really nasty look. It shows that the guy's power is nothing to it. The student falls to the ground and screams in fear, unable to react to the attack, because he realizes the angel destroyed a concrete pillar behind him. The creature then takes advantage of the distraction and throws the little boy, Yuta, into the air. The boy is tossed and spins through the air with no control over his fall, and his mother screams in despair, watching her son fall from the sky. But our protagonist appears out of nowhere and saves the boy at the last second. He then tosses the child to Asahi, who catches him safely in her arms. The two give each other a high five and get ready to fight the angel together. Our hero then smiles and says this will be a perfect test for his new body. The angel is confused and doesn't understand a thing about what's happening on the street. But our protagonist gives it a seriously sinister look, and the monster grinds its teeth in rage. His rival and another girl are frozen in fear in front of the giant angel. The guy can't believe his magic didn't work, and the girl beside him is terrified. Then our guy says he'll start with a warm up and unleashes a purple aura, and with a very focused look, he prepares for the battle to come. Suddenly, a mysterious man arrives and yells for everyone to get away from the danger. He introduces himself as Makoto Sato, leader of the 2nd Assault Unit of the subjugation team. The girl is super happy and relieved, because professional help has finally arrived. Our protagonist observes the scene and thinks that they are the knights of this new era, and without wasting time, he challenges Makoto to see what this so-called knight is capable of. Makoto then checks his watch and sees that backup only arrives in 10 minutes. Seeing he has no choice, he decides he'll fight alongside them to buy time. Makoto then calls out to Asahi, and she responds that she's ready to go. Makoto then tells Asahi that they're going to buy time until backup arrives. And without wasting a moment, he readies his energy weapon to shoot the angel. The knight fires with everything he's got, hitting the monster dead on with his shots. Our protagonist just watches the scene, seeming to find it all quite interesting. Meanwhile, Asahi doesn't waste any time and charges at the creature with her sword. She then prepares to deliver a very quick and precise strike on the monster, but the angel catches her blade with its hand, as if it were absolutely nothing. The girl is completely shocked, as she wasn't expecting that kind of resistance. Seeing the situation, Makoto also decides to engage in hand-to-hand combat, and with a swift move, he lands a deep cut on the angel's shoulder. The creature screams in pain, and a dark liquid starts to seep from the wound. Asahi then uses the opening to land a solid kick right in the monster's face. Right after, Makoto jumps and lands a spinning kick to its head. The girl then readies her weapon and concentrates a large amount of energy. The angel is stunned by the series of blows and lets out a puff of smoke from its mouth. Asahi complains that they don't have enough firepower and apologizes for not being stronger. However, Makoto says that's not the problem and gives a very serious look, because he explains that to subjugate an angel, the standard is to fight with at least 3 members. And as he's talking, the creature recovers and prepares to attack again. The angel then lunges at them with a very fast and unexpected strike. But our protagonist appears out of nowhere and blocks the attack with his hand. Makoto and Asahi's jaws drop, unable to believe the scene they're witnessing. The creature then turns and stares at our hero with a very confused look, and on the ground is the mark of the impact that our guy stopped with ease. The angel then looks at our hero, who is standing in front of the other 2. Our protagonist then says, "They look like they're in trouble," and offers to help. But Makoto yells at him to get back, as he's just an inexperienced recruit. However, Asahi defends him and says that maybe he could be useful in the battle. With a smirk, Our hero awaits the team leader's decision. Makoto then agrees but warns that he can only provide support from the rear. But our hero ignores the order and charges full speed at the giant angel. The creature is confused, wondering how he got there so fast. Our protagonist then lands a punch with all his strength right in the monster's face. The blow sends the angel flying high, and a bright light flashes in the sky. Makoto and Asai are in shock and yell out, not believing our guy's strength. The shockwave from the punch is so strong that the knight almost loses his balance. The angel then crashes to the ground, landing in the middle of the rubble it created. Makoto is left dumbfounded, not understanding a thing, weapon still in hand. But our hero doesn't waste time and already leaps for the next attack with a purple aura. He then points his index finger at the angel on the ground, and he fires a beam of dark energy that zips across the city with incredible force. Our guy lands in style, standing in front of the other two with a superior air. Makoto then asks who he really is, and our hero tells him to get in position. The angel screams in pain from the powerful attack that hit it dead on, and to escape the fight, it soars into the sky, trying to fly away. Seeing the angel flee, Makoto and Asahi prepare for one last combined attack. The knight then yells for everyone to create a protective shield on the street, and so, the three of them join forces to create a very powerful magic barrier. The other girl then says she needs to help and joins them in the spell, and with their hands raised, they manage to create a giant dome of energy. Right after, an explosion of golden light consumes the angel in the sky. The attack is so powerful that it hits the monster head on, giving it no chance to escape. And the explosion lights up the entire city, even reaching the top of a building. The girl who helped with the spell collapses on the ground, completely exhausted and weak. But our protagonist creates a purple barrier, shielding everyone from the blast. With a very serious look, he shows that he still has plenty of power to spare. The purple sphere then dissipates, revealing that the attack was a success. The angel then grinds its teeth in pain and seems to be badly injured in the sky. The girl on the ground celebrates the victory, saying they managed to defeat the angel. But the creature is still standing and seems to be preparing for a counterattack. The girl gets desperate, unable to believe the monster is still alive. To everyone's amazement, the angel begins to regenerate in mid-air, and now recovered, it flies towards them again to attack. Makoto then yells that he'll protect them, and that they should fall back while fighting. But our protagonist says there's no need to run from the battle, and with a purple aura, he says he's going to teach them the right way to defeat an angel. Our hero then tells them to watch carefully and walks towards the monster. And in the middle of the street, the two face off, ready for the final showdown. With a focused look, our guy prepares for the creature's attack. The angel then charges forward and tries to land a very powerful blow. But our protagonist catches the attack with just one hand, without any effort, and with a smirk, he spins the monster in the air with surreal force. The creature screams in pain, completely helpless in our hero's hand. Our guy then hurls the angel away with all his strength, and the creature hits the ground, its arm melting and slowly dissolving. Our hero then explains that even low-ranking angels have high regenerative power. His rival already loses hope, thinking there's no way they can win. Asahi and the other girl also have a very worried expression on their faces. Suddenly, the angel creates a golden magic circle and prepares for a new attack. And with its hand raised high, it concentrates a large amount of celestial energy. Right after, a powerful golden beam descends from the heavens right towards them. But our protagonist just gives a smirk, completely unfazed by the blow, because with a quick movement, he deflects the beam with his hand, sending it aside. The angel is completely shocked, not expecting that kind of ability. Asahi and the other girl scream that shouldn't even be possible. Our hero then explains that there's a limit to regenerative magic power, and concentrating a purple energy, he prepares for the final blow of the battle. A moment later, he fires a beam of dark light right at the angel. Makoto's jaw drops and he yells out, not understanding what our guy just did. The angel's body then begins to crack and break into several pieces in the air. The girl then notices that the angel's regeneration is slower than before, but our hero says that if they let it regenerate multiple times, they'll be the ones who get exhausted. His rival gets annoyed and says he doesn't look the least bit tired from the fight. The angel then grinds its teeth in rage and prepares for its last attack. Our protagonist then says the angel's magical power is concentrated in its head and chest, and without hesitation, he charges forward and shoves his hand into the monster's head. Right after, he pierces the creature's chest with his other hand without mercy. With a sinister smile, he shows that the fight is finally over for the angel, and with his face all dirty, he shows a look of pure satisfaction and victory. Our hero then explains that if these 2 points are destroyed, the angel can't regenerate, and with a smirk, he asks if that was a helpful tip for them. Everyone's jaw is on the floor, and his rival is completely stunned. Makoto then says that even knowing that, to do it so easily is incredible, and he comments that it's something only the 5 strongest in the world could do. Our guy's rival then says he knew Mizukami was cheating, with his hair all messed up. Our hero looks pretty tired from the battle that just ended. Makoto then thanks him for saving everyone and asks who he really is. Our protagonist then reveals that his name is Dantirio, and that he is the Demon King. The knight is completely confused by our guy's whole Demon King story, and checking his watch, he confirms that the guy is Mizukami Daya from the academy. Makoto then says they'll fight together again, and looks forward to that day. The girl who helped in the fight is super excited, as this is like a recruitment. Meanwhile, Azai approaches with her arms crossed and a very serious look, and gritting her teeth, she seems pretty ticked off by our protagonist's power. The other girl then calls Mizukami over to talk to him in private, and with a smile, she asks how he got so strong all of a sudden. Our hero then questions her, seeming not to quite understand her question. He then turns to the group, and everyone falls silent, waiting for the answer. And with an air of superiority, he says that he awakened as the great Demon King. The girl then says she gets it, her eyes sparkling with admiration. Asahi and Makoto are shocked by the revelation and don't know what to say. The girl then asks if she can become as strong as our protagonist. Our hero thinks for a moment and looks at her with a very serious and focused gaze. And using his special vision, he perceives the young woman's hidden potential. He then tells her yes, because she has a lot of talent to be tapped into. The girl is super happy and excited by our protagonist's answer. Our hero then says that with the right training, she can go far. But suddenly, he senses a strange presence, and his neck is struck. Seeing the danger, he yells for Asahi to run and get away as fast as she can. The girl is confused, not understanding a thing, and is grabbed by a mysterious hand. A new angel appears and attacks Asahi with full force, giving her no time to react. But our protagonist casts a spell and manages to stop the attack in mid-air, and with a furious look, he stares down the new creature that appeared out of nowhere. The angel then stands there, panting, in front of our hero without moving, and with its green eyes glowing, it glares at our protagonist with intense anger. The angel then stands there, panting, in front of our hero without moving, and with a sinister smile, he seems to be enjoying the situation. Asahi then says she didn't feel the angel's presence approaching her, and not understanding it all, she wonders where the mysterious creature went. Suddenly, the monster appears behind our protagonist without making a sound. But our hero just gives a little smirk and doesn't seem to care, and with a powerful punch, he hits the angel square in the face. The blow sends the creature flying, and it crashes hard onto the ground. A large cloud of dust rises from the impact of the angel's fall, and the creature assumes an attack stance similar to that of an insect. Our protagonist then realizes that the angel can teleport through space, time, and with a smirk, he finds it all very interesting and challenging. The angel then says that our hero's body is very interesting to him. Our protagonist then says he's going to investigate the angel's body as well, and with a sinister smile, He says he's going to examine the monster's body. Makoto and Asahi are surprised by the second angel that appeared out of nowhere. The knight then comments that angels usually only appear a few times a year, and checking her watch, Asahi yells that this new angel is not on the threat list. Makoto is shocked because this means it's a new type of angel never seen before. Our protagonist then unleashes a purple aura and prepares for the new battle, and the angel stares at our hero's shadowy hand with a very serious and focused look, and with its green eyes glowing, it seems to be analyzing our guy's power. Suddenly, a strange shadow appears and startles our protagonist's rival. Our hero then unleashes his dark energy and prepares for combat, and the angel charges full speed towards him with a very sinister smile. The dark shadow then surrounds his rival, who screams in fear, unable to react. But our protagonist protects him and grabs the angel's mouth with his hand, and with a smirk, he spins the creature in the air with great force. Our hero then launches a purple energy attack right at the angel. The hit lands dead on, and the angel is disintegrated in the air by the explosion. With a confident smile, our hero says he'll be the angel's opponent. And in the middle of the street, the two face off, ready for the final battle. The angel then extends its hand and prepares for a very powerful attack. And with a golden light, it launches a blast of energy towards our guy, but our protagonist catches the attack with his hand and absorbs it without any problem. And with a smirk, he shows that the angel's power is nothing to him. The creature then charges full force and tries to land a blow with its wings. But our hero stops the attack with just one finger and looks at it with superiority. He then says the angel has a rare ability and should use it more creatively. The angel gets ticked off by the mockery and tries to attack at point-blank range. And with a sinister smile, it concentrates a large amount of energy, but our protagonist pierces its chest with his hand and defeats it. And with a cold look, he shows that the fight is finally over for the angel. Our hero then strikes the creature's head with a final blow. The angel then disintegrates in the air and vanishes completely from the street. With a furious look, the angel stares at our protagonist who defeated it, and with its green eyes glowing, it seems to be plotting something. Suddenly, the monster tries to teleport and escape the battle at the last second, but our hero grabs it and says he won't let it get away. No way. Makoto is shocked, unable to believe he managed to block the teleport. Our protagonist then shoves his hand into the angel's mouth without hesitation, and with a smirk, he says he's finally found what he was looking for. He then pulls out a strange object and says this is the secret to the teleportation. And as he crushes the object, the angel begins to slowly disintegrate in the air. Our hero then remembers his past as the Demon King and his battles, where he faced armies of angels with white wings who were incredibly powerful, and all of them had a sinister smile and seemed to enjoy the destruction. He then realizes the material of the object looks like a mysterious door, and with a serious look, he says he has enough information for now. Our protagonist then finishes off the angel with one last blow, disintegrating it. Our protagonist then crushes the angel with a final, powerful blow, and without hesitation, he rips out the creature's eye with his hand, mercilessly. A moment later, the angel explodes in a shower of dark liquid in the air, and with his arms outstretched, our hero seems to be enjoying the scene. With a smirk, he gives a thumbs up and shows that the fight is over, and now the other students can finally breathe a sigh of relief on the street. Makoto and the girls are shocked by our protagonist's surreal strength, and the knight wonders if this is his first real battle. Meanwhile, our guy's rival panics and gets desperate. Makoto then comments that it's normal to be frozen with fear the first time, and looking at Asahi, he notices she doesn't seem to be scared. He then says she's special and has great potential for the future, and he reveals that even the instructors call her the Berserker among the recruits. Asahi gets embarrassed by the compliment and doesn't know what to say to him, but Makoto says our hero is far beyond all of them. Our protagonist then says he already told them he's the Demon King. Makoto laughs and asks if that's his new joke to scare the others, but he admits he almost believes it, because of our guys of normal strength. Our hero then says that if they're surprised by this level, they'll never win. Makoto gets confused and asks who he's referring to with all this. Our protagonist then says that the angel's power is more than just that, but the knight says that nowadays, humans can handle them, and our hero realizes their perception of the angels is very weak. Meanwhile, backup arrives, and everyone can finally relax for good. Asahai then approaches and calls our protagonist over for a serious talk, and with a determined look, she asks him to train her to get stronger. The girl then yells that she needs to win at all costs in the next battle, and seeing her, our protagonist is reminded of his old friend Jane. He then agrees to her request and says he'll help her train because he believes that if she is the reincarnation of Jean, she still has a lot of growing to do. While Asahai and our hero are talking, Sakuraba watches everything from a distance, and he has a look of pure rage, unable to accept the defeat. The guy then wonders what trick Mizukami used to win. Our protagonist ignores his rival and continues talking to the excited Asahi. Sakuraba then remembers that he almost bit the dust a while back, and with a wicked smile, he concludes that it must have been magic, enhancing drugs. The scene then takes us to the training area of the subjugation school, and there, the students are training with very advanced combat robots. They use a special anti-angel weapon called a magic sword, and the robots are programmed to simulate a real battle against the angels. Asahai then picks up her magic sword and gets ready for training. The robots then display their power levels and prepare for combat, and the girl charges forward and lands a powerful blow on the robot, and with a battle cry, she destroys the machine with a single strike. The robot's eyes spin, and it looks completely wrecked. The machine then shows the number 672 as the final damage, and Asahi breathes a sigh of relief and checks her results on a holographic screen. Meanwhile, our protagonist also grabs his magic sword to train, and holding it, he activates a very bright blue energy blade. Our hero then realizes that the sword amplifies the user's magic, but Asahai is shocked and wonders what that giant blade is. With a smile on his face, our hero says the blade is really long. Asahai then says he came, and the guy replies that he made a promise. Our protagonist then says he'll mess around a bit and gets ready for the test. And as he touches the blade to the robot, it seems to be measuring our guy's power. The robot then starts to shake, and its eyes look completely terrified. And suddenly its blue eyes start to flash and turn red with alert. The machine then beeps and shows the number 9,999. Asahi's jaw drops, and she yells because our hero's power maxed out the limit. Our protagonist then says the sword is a very convenient item for him, and the girl explains that the weapon was created to be the pinnacle of human wisdom. She then asks if he learned that in class, making him feel awkward, and our hero wonders if he learned that at some point while studying, because he remembers spending hours studying alone in the school library. Our protagonist then says the sword is powerful but has a flaw, and holding it tighter, he shows that the weapon has its limitations. Our protagonist then tests the sword's strength on the training robot, and as he swings the blade, the energy dissipates, and the robot takes no damage. The sword then starts to shake and spark, unable to handle the power. Our hero then explains that the weapon becomes dead weight for someone with too much magic, and as he drops the sword, the robot shows that the blow had no effect. Suddenly, the machine explodes into pieces and falls to the gym floor because the sword couldn't handle our hero's magic and overloaded. He then tells Azai that she needs to improve the use of her own magic. The other girl gets super excited and asks him to teach her too, and with open arms, she yells that she wants to learn the new method. The girl then says she also wants to get stronger for the battles. Asahi looks bored and doesn't seem to like the idea very much, and she questions if the normal training menu isn't enough for her. The girl then remembers our protagonist's compliment on the street, and with a blush, She says that Daya told her she has talent. Asai gets annoyed because the girl called our hero by his first name. With a smirk, our protagonist says he'll train her too. The girl is overjoyed, her eyes sparkling with pure admiration. But our hero says that before they start, he needs to do one little thing. And with a touch on her cheek, he seems to be doing something strange. The girl then squirms and seems to feel a different sensation. And with her face all red, she loses her strength and collapses on the gym floor. Asai is shocked and doesn't understand a thing about what just happened. And annoyed, she yells and asks what he did to the poor, defenseless girl. Our protagonist then explains that her magic flow was clogged, and with a blush, the girl is panting and seems to be recovering. Our hero then backs away and goes to get his magic sword back. He then tosses the weapon to the girl on the gym floor, and startled, she catches the sword in midair. Not understanding what's happening, with the weapon in hand, she prepares for whatever comes next in the training. Our protagonist then tells the girl to try using the magic sword, and she says that someone like her couldn't even activate the weapon before. But our hero insists and tells her to just do what he said. The girl then concentrates and tries to activate the sword with all her might, and to her surprise, a pink energy blade suddenly emerges from the weapon. With her eyes sparkling, she yells that the sword finally worked for her. Asai's jaw drops, not believing she managed it so easily. The girl then explains that only Sakuraba could use the weapon in their class. Our protagonist then tells her to try hitting the training robot, and with a confident smile, she gets ready to test her new power. The girl then approaches the robot and prepares for her first strike, and with a battle cry, she hits the machine with her energy blade. The robot then beeps and shows the number 112 as the damage received. The girl is surprised by the result, and our hero gives her a thumbs up, and with a smile on his face, our protagonist seems satisfied with the progress. Asai is shocked because when she first managed to use the sword, it was nothing like that, and desperately, she asks our protagonist to train her too. Our hero then turns and looks at her with a very serious and focused gaze. But he says it's not necessary because her magic flow is already perfect. And using his special vision, he shows that her energy flows cleanly through her body. With tears in her eyes, Asai asks if she can't get any stronger. She then watches the other girl, who made a huge breakthrough in her training, but our protagonist says she can. Just not with the same method, and with a smile, he says he's prepared a special training menu just for her, and looking at the combat robots, he gets ready for the next step. Asai is curious and asks what the special training menu for her is. Our hero then tells her to raise her magical power to its absolute limit, and the girl agrees and prepares to show all her power at once. She then concentrates and unleashes a large amount of pink energy, and with a battle cry, she shows she's ready for the training. With a battle cry, she shows she's ready for the training. Our protagonist then places his hand on her head without warning. The other girl laughs, seeming to be amused by the unexpected situation, and with a blush, she watches our hero's special training. Our protagonist's hand glows, and he seems to be transferring energy. Asai is panting and confused, not understanding what's happening. Suddenly, she loses her strength and collapses on the gym floor, motionless. And with heavy breathing, she says she can't move her body because her magical energy was completely drained by our protagonist. And with a blush, she wonders how her magic was sucked out so quickly. The other girl is shocked, having never heard of a technique like that. Asai then clenches her fist and prepares for the next step of the training. Our hero then says he's going to continue and approaches her on the floor, and placing his hand on her head, he begins to transfer energy again. The other girl yells out in surprise because he's doing the same process. Our protagonist then continues to transfer energy to Asai on the floor, and with a blush, she seems to be feeling a great amount of power. Suddenly, her eyes widen as she notices something different in her body. Our hero then asks how she's feeling after the process. Asai then stands up, shocked by the sensation she's feeling, and with a surprised look, She says her magic is recovering. The other girl then yells that this goes against current magic theory. But our protagonist scoffs and says that theory is incorrect. He then approaches Asahi and looks at her very seriously. And without wasting time, he tells her to repeat the whole process again. Asahi is scared and doesn't understand why she has to do it all over again. Our hero then explains that depleting and recovering magic increases power. And shocked, the girl asks if that's really possible to do. The other girl then says that's forbidden because of the side effects. But our protagonist says people will believe any old nonsense. Our protagonist then says that's how he trained in the past. And turning around, he faces Asahi with a very serious and challenging look. He then asks what she's going to do, and if she's willing to try. The girl then looks to the side, seeming to think about the proposal, and with a blush, she shows a look of pure determination. Asahi then clenches her fist tightly and prepares for the training. And with all the certainty in the world, she says she's in and accepts the challenge. Our hero then gives a smirk, seemingly satisfied with her answer. He then says they'll repeat the process 100 times a day, non-stop. Asahi is completely shocked and can't believe what she just heard. And desperately, she yells that 100 times is an absurd number to do. But afraid, she agrees and prepares for the insane training. Our protagonist's hand glows, and he begins to drain her energy. And once again, Asahi collapses on the floor, weak and completely exhausted, and his hand glows again to repeat the process one more time. Asahi is in shock, and the other girl watches from a distance, and our protagonist's hand glows with a strong pink energy. The girl's face then turns bright red, and she seems to feel something different. 3 hours later, she's on the gym floor, completely exhausted. Our hero then says they've only done it 20 times so far, and with a satisfied look, he says that's enough for the first day. The other girl then approaches, looking pretty scared of him. Our protagonist then asks if she's ever seen this training method, and the girl replies that she's never heard of anything like it in her life. Our hero then becomes thoughtful, seeming to analyze the situation. The girl then asks what kind of organization the anti-angel team is, and with sparkling eyes, she gets super excited to explain everything. She says that magic exams are held to select the most talented individuals, and if they get good grades, they join one of the 5 teams in the world. But in Japan, there are only 100 members, and our hero thinks that's not a lot. The girl then explains that few students become actual members, and our hero says it's a popular profession because of the good salary. He then remembers an old battle against a very powerful angel, and he wonders why the current elite is so weak in comparison. Our protagonist then thinks about the flawed theory on the use of magic, and also about the magic sword, which is an excellent tool for them, plus the appearance of a new type of angel he's never seen before. The girls then watch him as he's lost in thought, because he remembers the Great War against the angels 600 years ago, and with a serious look, he says he needs to increase the warrior's strength. The girls are confused, because he wants to make everyone stronger, because our hero doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes of the dark past. And he decides the best thing to do is join the organization to train everyone. Our protagonist then says he's going to become a regular member. Right now, the scene then takes us to the school classroom the next morning. The classroom is full of students, all very focused on their studies. Meanwhile, Asahi is diligently taking notes on her holographic screen. Suddenly, our hero arrives and Asahi says he's late. With a smirk, he replies that he was with the school principal. The girl then gets confused and asks the reason for that meeting, and our protagonist says she'll understand everything very soon. At that moment, the teacher enters the classroom with firm steps. He has a stern look on his face and seems to have some news, and all the students fall silent and wait for what he's going to say. The teacher then holds his clipboard and prepares for the announcement, and he says that a special training match will take place next week. The man then turns his back and faces the entire class of students. The students are shocked, as they weren't expecting this news. and the other girl says the announcement was made very suddenly. The teacher then yells that the match is a direct order from the principal. The teacher announces that the first fight will be Yamazaki versus Mizuki, and the second match will be Asahi versus our protagonist, Daya. Everyone in the classroom is completely shocked by the news. Asahi then turns and asks our hero what he did. With a smirk, our guy just lets out a little laugh. The scene then takes us to the school principal's office, and the man is analyzing our protagonist's data on a screen. He swipes his finger across the screen and doesn't seem to like what he sees, because the principal says he can't recommend him with those grades. And he also says our hero has no combat ability. Our guy then says he just needs to demonstrate his fighting power. And with a serious look, he stares down the principal with determination. The man then points to Asahi's photo on the holographic screen and says that if our hero beats her, he might consider it. Our protagonist then asks if the recommendation will be guaranteed. But the principal says with a smirk that he can't promise anything, and with a mysterious look, he seems to be thinking of a plan. Our hero then says he'll train Mizuki to beat Yamazaki in the fight. The man starts to laugh and scoffs, because the worst students are going to fight. Our protagonist then says if that's not enough, he'll bet his expulsion. The principal is surprised by our guy's confidence in the bet. Our hero then says it's better for him to accept and keep his secret. The man gets annoyed and looks at the holographic screen on his desk, and the screen shows a report about a drug case at the school. The principal then says the condition is that they both win their fights, and holding up 2 fingers, he reinforces the condition for the deal. With a smile on his face, our protagonist accepts the proposal on the spot. Back in the classroom, the students are all very worked up, and Yamazaki squeezes a metal bar with great force and anger, because he yells that his opponent is a rookie and feels humiliated. The students in the classroom are still very agitated by the news, and Yamazaki says this is an easy task to get the recommendation. With a look of anger, he says he doesn't like the idea, but will fight. And pointing at our hero, he yells that he'll be next on the list. Mizuki gets scared and calls our protagonist's name very softly, but with a smile on his face. Our guy tells her not to worry, because he guarantees that if she follows his training, victory is certain. The girl then nods in agreement and accepts the training proposal. Asahi then says she's also looking forward to the special training, and with a smile, she says she'll try to get stronger before the fight. The teacher then calls the attention of Momoyama and Mizukami in the class, and with a worried tone, he asks them both to be careful. But Asahi says he'll be fine, and they're the ones who need to be careful. The teacher is surprised by the unexpected joke from the quiet student, and with a loud laugh, he says even Sakuraba is telling jokes. With a confident smile, our hero looks at Mizuki, who is terrified, and after class, he meets up with the girl to start the training. Our protagonist then asks if she's good with barrier magic. The girl blushes and seems very embarrassed, and with a tearful face, she says it's the only magic she knows how to use. But our hero says that's the correct instinct for a living being, and he explains that strength lies beyond overcoming fear with skill. The girl then looks at him with admiration and seems very touched, so he says they'll use barrier magic to win. The girl then yells that this magic is only good for stalling the enemy, and with a smirk, our protagonist seems to have a plan, because he says he'll teach her that magic depends on how you use it. The scene then takes us to the location of the school's battle tournament, and our hero and Asahi are standing with their arms crossed, looking very serious. Meanwhile, the other competitors are sitting in the stands. The teacher then explains that the winner either knocks out or makes the other give up, and with a serious look, he says he'll stop the fight if it gets dangerous. Mizuki then faces Yamazaki with a scared but determined look, and the teacher announces the start of the great battle between the 2 students. Yamazaki then charges forward and yells that he'll end this quickly, but the girl defends herself and creates a pink energy barrier in front. The guy's blow then explodes in a large cloud of dust and light, and Mizuki manages to hold back the attack with her powerful magic barrier. Yamazaki gets angry and yells that her defense isn't enough. And from the stands, the students say his power is overwhelming. The guy then yells for her to just stand there and defend herself forever. The girl then remembers her training and draws a magic circle on the ground, and with a battle cry, she activates her new combat ability. A large red energy blade appears and slices through the air with force, and a pink energy sphere appears in the middle of the battle arena. The pink energy sphere explodes, releasing a large smokescreen. Yamazaki's eyes are filled with rage because his attack didn't work, and he yells in desperation because the trap he set failed. Mizuki then launches several pink energy projectiles at the guy. The smoke then spreads and covers the entire battle arena, and the girl hides in the smoke with a very focused and serious look. The entire arena is covered in smoke, and no one can see a thing. Yamazaki then says the smokescreen is useless and prepares a strike, and with a battle cry, he launches a sphere of energy into the smoke. The girl then prepares to defend herself and creates an energy barrier, and her eyes go wide because his attack is very powerful. A huge explosion happens, kicking up a lot of dust in the arena. The teacher then shields himself from the smoke and tries to see what happened, and with a surprised look, he seems to not believe the scene. He then watches the arena as the dust begins to settle. The dust settles, and Mizuki casts a new spell with a magic circle. Yamazaki gets annoyed, not expecting this turn of events in the fight. He then charges through the smoke to try and catch her by surprise, and the girl looks at him with a serious expression and prepares her trap. With a battle cry, she activates her magic barrier again. The guy then screams in pain as he runs into an invisible barrier, and he realizes he's trapped and wonders how this is possible. The scene then takes us back to the training with our hero and Mizuki, where she's working very hard to learn the new barrier technique. The girl then yells that she can't do what he's asking because his training method defies all the laws of magic. Our protagonist then gets thoughtful and analyzes the situation, and he shows her how to bend magic with a simple gesture. Mizuki is shocked and says his demonstration was incredible. Back in the present, she concentrates to use the technique in the fight. The pink energy barrier begins to shake and bend in the air. Mizuki then yells with all her might and makes a gesture with her hand, and the barrier falls into a completely new and unexpected shape. Yamazaki's jaw drops because she managed to bend the barrier, and with a pinching gesture, she continues to manipulate the pink energy. The barrier then moves and starts to surround the guy in the arena. He is completely shocked and can't believe what he's seeing, and suddenly, an energy triangle forms and traps him in place. The guy then yells that the top is open, and it's a trick. Mizuki then makes a closing gesture with her hand to complete the prison, and Yamazaki looks up in desperation as the ceiling closes in. The barrier then closes, trapping him in a pink energy cube. Asahi yells that he's been caught, and our hero gives a smirk. The guy then pounds on the wall and yells for her to let him out, and he says the fight isn't fair and that he'll never surrender. Mizuki says she can reduce the oxygen inside the magic barrier, and Yamazaki is shocked, not expecting that strategy. The guy then starts to suffocate and gets desperate inside the cube. The girl then says she can maintain the barrier for a whole day, and with a blush, she realizes she's finally achieved victory. Yamazaki then falls to his knees and screams in rage for being defeated, and he says he would never lose to someone like her in a fight. The guy then yells that he doesn't accept the defeat. No way. Mizuki is surprised by his reaction and by her own victory. Suddenly, a bright light shines and pulls him out of the barrier, and he's teleported out of the arena by a magic circle. The girl then looks at her hand, surprised by her own power, and the pink energy barrier begins to dissolve into particles. The arena is now empty, and the dust from the battle starts to settle. Yamazaki then appears, panting and looking completely exhausted. Mizuki shrinks in fear as Yamazaki glares at her with a look of contempt, and with a roar of rage. The guy says the battle is finally over, but the girl runs across the arena and he chases her for the final blow. With a furious look, he prepares a yellow energy sphere in his hand, and as he gets closer, he tries to hit her with the powerful energy attack. The girl then closes her eyes and braces for the impact of the blow. But suddenly, she grabs the hilt of a magic sword that appeared there, and a pink energy blade emerges, surprising the guy in the arena. With the sword at his neck, the girl looks at him with determination, and with a serious look, she says she already told him she had won the fight. Yamazaki breaks into a cold sweat, unable to believe he lost to a rookie. The teacher then raises his arm to announce the end of the match, and with the arena full of smoke, he yells that Momoyama is the winner. Asai claps happily, and our hero gives a smirk. Yamazaki then kneels on the ground and screams in rage over his defeat. The students in the stands are shocked and wonder how she got the sword. Meanwhile, our hero watches Mizuki as she walks shyly across the arena, and with a blush, the girl looks at him and seems very grateful. Our protagonist then praises her and says she did a great job in the fight. Suddenly, the girl loses her strength and falls into our hero's lap. He then carries her to a stretcher so she can rest for a bit, and with a tired look, she watches him and seems very happy. Our hero then tells her to just relax and watch the next fight, and he and Asai get ready for the big battle that's about to begin. A guy in the stands says it's impossible for him to beat Sakuraba, but his friend asks if he didn't see our heroes fight the other day. The scene then takes us to the arena, where the two face each other from a distance, and with a confident smile, our protagonist seems very calm. Asahai then says she doesn't think she can win, but looks determined, and holding her magic sword, she prepares for the great combat. With her pink energy sword, Asahi yells that she'll show him her training, and in the stands, the principal notices that her skills have improved again. He then says he didn't expect Yamazaki's defeat, but that she will win, because with a wicked smile, he reveals he's already recommended her to organizations. Meanwhile, our protagonist just casually raises his hand in the arena, and a blue energy suddenly starts to glow in the palm of his hand. Our hero then creates an energy blade with his bare hands, and he says he'll play along, as he's adjusted his power to her level. The girl then charges forward and thanks him for the consideration. The swords clash, and our hero blocks the blow with a smile. A student then yells out in shock because he created a sword with his hands. Our guy holds her off with ease and seems to be making no effort. But Asahi gets desperate because she can't overcome his strength. With a single blow, our hero knocks her back and throws her off balance. However, she doesn't give up and yells that the battle isn't over yet. With a determined look, Asai charges full speed at our hero, and with a battle cry, she prepares for a very powerful attack. Our protagonist then blocks the blow with his blue energy blade, but he's surprised by the girl's unexpected strength in the arena, and with a quick move, he grabs the hilt of her magic sword. Our hero then looks at her, seeming to analyze his opponent. Asai's hand glows, and she puts more magical power into her weapon, and he does the same, so as not to fall behind in the power struggle. The girl then grabs the energy blade with her other hand, and she yells in shock because he's holding the weapon with his bare hands. With a focused look, Asai doesn't give up and continues to force the blow, but our hero throws her back using her own sword as leverage, and with a powerful kick, he pushes her even further away from him. The girl then grips her weapon tighter and prepares again, and she runs towards him for another attack without a second thought. Our protagonist then challenges her, asking what she's going to do, and with a gesture, he creates a large mass of ice crystals in the air. Asahi then runs to dodge the attack and prepares for a counter-attack. With a focused look, she breaks into a sweat but doesn't seem afraid of his power, and with a yell, she grips her sword tighter to defend herself. Our hero then says she's too slow and throws her back again, and he warns her that she can't win the fight just by running from him. With a smirk, Asai agrees and seems to have a plan in mind. Our protagonist then asks with a smile if she's going to give up, but the girl says she's going to use her strongest technique to end the fight. and concentrating energy into her sword, she prepares for the final blow with a battle cry. She says she's going to put all her magic into this, and raising her sword, she creates a giant pink energy blade. The weapon then glows with an absurd intensity and becomes enormous, and she prepares to launch the most powerful attack she's ever used. Our hero watches with a smile at Asahi's giant energy blade, and with her hair turning pink from so much power, she yells and launches the attack with everything she has. The pink blade then descends and collides with our protagonist's ice wall. The ice begins to melt and crack from the force of the girl's blow. Our hero then tries to hold back the attack with his blue energy blade, but he seems to be struggling as her power is immense. The two blades then clash, creating a great power struggle. Asahi's attack explodes, and a large cloud of pink dust covers the arena. The shockwave throws all the students in the stands backward, and the dust from the explosion spreads, leaving everyone with no visibility. The principal then yells excitedly, saying his name will become famous with this. In the middle of the smoke, Asahi is panting and seems completely exhausted, and with a surprised look, she realizes something strange is happening, because her hand starts to tremble, and she says she can't move, and the girl stands frozen in the smoke with her pink energy sword. With a smirk, our hero says her technique was decent, but Asahi gets annoyed because he caught her strongest attack with one hand, and he continues to hold the energy blade without any effort. The students in the stands are shocked that he came out of the attack without a scratch. Asahi then puts more force into the attack and tries to push our hero back, and with her eyes glowing with anger, she can't accept the defeat. Our protagonist then grips her blade more firmly, and he says she needs to let go of the weapon so she doesn't get hurt anymore. With a smirk, he shows that her hand is stuck in his. Our hero then squeezes the energy blade with all his strength, and with a quick move, he dissipates the attack, sending it into the sky. Asahi's jaw drops, and she wonders how he did that so easily. Our protagonist then explains that their magic is resonating, and with a determined look, the girl seems to have understood what happened. Behind him, a demonic figure appears and looks at him with a smile. The demonic figure is Dalterio, our hero's master from his past life, and Asahi remembers when she faced him as a powerful knight. With a shocked face, she asks if it's really him in front of her, and with tears in her eyes, the girl cries out her former master's name. Our hero then observes the pink energy particles in the air, and he asks Asahi if she's finally managed to remember. With a smile on her face, the girl confirms that she remembers everything. She then says that our protagonist managed to reincarnate successfully. Our hero then asks what happened after he fell. The girl puts a hand to her head and tries to remember the past, but she closes her eyes and seems to have trouble recalling, and with a pained expression, Asahi says she can't remember. Our protagonist then gently places a hand on her face. In the stands, Mizuki and Yamazaki are startled by the scene, and our hero closes his eyes and seems to use some power on her, and our hero sees her memory in a place full of fire and destruction. Asahi is then surrounded by angels and seems to be in a major battle, and with his eye glowing, our protagonist seems to have understood everything. The girl then looks at him and seems to be recovering from the shock. Our hero explains that her soul's memories have been sealed. She then asks why, and he says he doesn't know the answer, and he suggests they look for the 5 angels to find out the truth, because they might be the key to restoring her memory. With a smile, Asahi says they can also uncover the angels' plans. Suddenly, the teacher appears and asks what they're doing. The girl then turns to him and says she's forfeiting the match. The teacher is shocked and asks if she's sure about her decision. With a smile on her face, Asahi confirms that she's forfeiting. The man then grabs our protagonist's arm tightly, and he raises it high and declares him the grand winner of the match. In the stands, the students are shocked by the turn of events in the fight, and they can't believe our hero beat the best student in the class. Our protagonist then walks up the stairs, with Asahi following right behind. She then calls him by his old name and immediately corrects herself. But with a smirk, our hero says he doesn't mind. Suddenly, Mizuki runs and trips on the stand's steps, and she yells and asks what's going on with the atmosphere in the place. Asai then says everything is normal, but Mizuki doesn't believe her, and she points out Asahi and says there's something very wrong there, because Mizuki says she always trained with a demon-like face. Asahi gets embarrassed and tries to play off the awkward situation. Mizuki then yells that now she looks like a girl in love, and she continues to yell that Asahi is completely different. Our protagonist then sits down and watches the two argue, and he looks at the empty arena as they continue to bicker. The principal is furious and clearly didn't like the outcome at all. A man then appears and recommends that both of them become official members. The principal breaks into a cold sweat, looking like he's in a tough spot, because the guy says he knows he wanted to use Sakuraba as a tool, and that he saw her as a talent who could be the strongest in history. The man is shocked that his secret plan has been completely exposed. The guy then says the angels have been acting strangely lately, and the principal reveals that Sakuraba was supposed to be his gift to the American branch. With a smirk, the guy says that would tarnish his reputation, but the man says that with his authority, he can just take Mizukami. The principal then yells that Sakuraba's value will plummet with this, and he asks if the guy thinks a failure is worth more than her. The man then looks at him and says yes. After seeing the fight, the principal gets furious and calls him a senile old man for the decision, and he storms off through the empty stadium stands, ticked off. Our protagonist then tells them to add Mizuki to the list too. Turning to our hero, the man asks if he thinks she has potential. Our guy then replies that she will have potential if he trains her. The guy then agrees and says he'll talk to the higher-ups about it. The principal then gets furious and seems unable to accept the final decision. With a clenched fist, he shows all his anger for being overruled. Meanwhile, the scene takes us to the city of Ariak at night, and suddenly, a gate of light opens in the sky, and several angels fly out. The scene shifts to a monitoring room, where a man seems to be watching everything unfold. This is Kenzo Hirokawa, the research unit director, and with a villainous smirk, it's clear he's up to no good. From his office, he declares it's time for some fun experiments to begin. He then starts typing on his keyboard with a look of pure malice. With way too much excitement, the man activates some kind of unknown system. Meanwhile, outside, we see a squad of fully equipped elite soldiers. Suddenly, one of the soldiers gets a strange signal on his communicator. The device on his neck seems to have been remotely activated by someone. A digital clock then shows it's almost 9 o'clock sharp. Back in the room, the man keenly observes the soldiers on his monitor. Seconds later, one of the soldiers suddenly looks unwell, clutching his head. Then, he and all the others collapse to the ground at the same time, completely drained. Our hero and Mizuki watch the scene as a shadowy hand approaches them. Kenzo then orders 5 of them to fight the angels, and the rest to destroy the gate. Immediately, the soldiers get up and confirm they've received their orders. Mizuki is shocked to see them all flying towards the sky, because high above, 2 angels with black wings and sinister smiles have appeared. Wasting no time, the soldiers charge forward with energy swords to attack. They then kick off a massive aerial battle against the 2 celestial creatures. However, the angels are unfazed and counter-attack with blasts of energy. Makoto and his partner watch the explosion, and she asks what in the world is going on. He replies that it must be the famous magic enhancement unit in action. With a serious look, he thinks to himself that they use performance enhancers to boost their power. The girl gets ticked off, questioning if the top brass doesn't trust them to handle it. Meanwhile, in the battle, a soldier manages to block an angel's attack. He then grips his weapon tighter, getting ready for a counterattack. The soldier flies rapidly towards the creature for another strike, and with his energy sword, he manages to land a direct hit on the angel. The creature seems to feel the damage, left with a deep gash across its chest. At the same time, the other soldiers on the ground prepare a combined attack. They all fire powerful golden orbs of energy at the angels. The massive assault hits one of the creatures in the air, with full force. However, the angel seems completely unshaken and keeps its wicked smile. Right after, a huge explosion of energy lights up the city sky. Mizuki watches the scene and wonders if they finally won the fight. But our protagonist doesn't seem too convinced by the outcome. He then takes a step forward, and a purple magic circle appears at his feet. In the sky, the smoke from the explosion slowly begins to clear. The smoke vanishes completely, revealing what happened to the creature. In the lab, Kenzo shouts that it's impossible, as the angel emerged from the attack without a scratch. Kenzo starts to panic as he sees a massive explosion on his control monitor. He then yells, not understanding what's happening in the battle outside, because on the battlefield, one of his elite soldiers is down on the ground, and not just one, but all the others are also dropping from the sky, defeated. In his room, Kenzo watches as their vital signs all vanish from his monitor. The control panel shows that their energy is depleting incredibly fast. On top of that, the digital clock shows that not even 3 minutes of fighting have passed. Furious, he orders the mission to be aborted and for everyone to be rescued immediately. He then realizes that real combat drains their energy way faster than expected. Kenzo knew they were disposable, but he didn't expect them to have such low stamina. Meanwhile, on the ground, our hero and Makoto watch everything from a distance. Suddenly, Kenzo contacts Makoto and hands command of the operation back to him. Makoto is pretty surprised, as he wasn't expecting that sudden decision. Shortly after, a rescue helicopter arrives to pick up the injured soldiers. The men are carried into the aircraft to receive medical attention. Our hero and his group watch the chopper retreat into the sky, leaving them behind. A girl with pink hair then says something with a very serious expression. She asks how they're supposed to destroy that giant, mysterious gate. Another suggests a missile strike, but Makoto says that won't work. He then turns to our MC and asks if he knows anything. Makoto then points right at our hero and says that he knows something. Next thing you know, our protagonist is sprinting towards the gate. Surrounded by a purple aura, he has a confident smirk on his face, looking like he has a plan. His feet then touch a huge magic circle that suddenly appears on the ground. A moment later, he begins to float towards the large and mysterious gate. Makoto is stunned and says that it's a 4-layered magic spell. Our hero then explains that the gate can't be destroyed, but it can be dismantled. He then extends his hand, his eyes glowing with pure darkness. Right after, he touches the shimmering surface of the great mysterious gate, and with a flash of light, the gate simply vanishes into thin air. The angels are furious and try to shot our protagonist from behind. However, Asai doesn't waste a second and leaps in to protect him from the surprise attack. Makoto also shouts that he's joining the fight to help everyone out. The creature then launches a powerful energy attack in his direction. However, the pink-haired girl creates a magic shield to defend him. With a determined look, she manages to hold back the angel's powerful blow. High above, the top of the gate begins to break apart into small cubes. Our protagonist then watches the pieces slowly fall from the sky. His friends look at him, completely blown away by the incredible scene, and they say that our hero is amazing and that he looks like an angel. The blue-haired girl says that amazing doesn't even begin to cover it. While our hero stands there, the other students celebrate his incredible feat. He then shouts for them not to let their guard down, because the remaining angels are about to attack. Makoto looks at everyone with a determined gaze and agrees with the assessment. Shortly after, he says it's cleanup time, and everyone gets ready to fight. The scene then cuts to the meeting room of the Angel Subjugation Force. On the big screen, they're reviewing the footage of our hero in front of the gate. Asahai and the other students watch everything with very serious expressions. Our protagonist is also in the room, observing the meeting calmly. Makoto then explains that 19 angels emerged from the gate in just 3 days. Mizuki is floored, because 19 angels in such a short time is an insane number. She comments that if they didn't act fast, the entire city of Tokyo would have been wiped out. The other students in the room stand up, ready to hear the rest of the plan. Makoto then states firmly that preventing this catastrophe is their mission. However, he explains that the real problem is how they're going to destroy the gate. A young man reveals that only our hero can use the magic that destroys the gate. Another student is shocked and can't believe what he just heard, because the young man reveals that the spell our hero used was a four-layered one. Makoto then confirms the information, saying that's exactly what happened. The blue-haired girl adds that he did alone what many can't achieve together. One of the students then says that if they had several mages, they could pull off the spell. Makoto replies that the tech team is already researching it, but it's going to take time. The guy gets annoyed and asks if they don't have any other plays to make right now. Makoto says that for the time being, they'll have to rely solely on Mizukami's help. The pink-haired girl then gets a very serious look on her face, because she says to forget the gate and imagine if it turned into a dungeon. Another student gets irritated and tells her not to even suggest an idea like that. Mizuki is confused and asks what exactly this dungeonization thing is. Makoto then points to the big screen to start explaining the phenomenon. On the screen, an image appears of the city being altered by a mysterious force. He explains that it's when the area around a celestial gate is transformed. The image shows the gate now on top of one of the city's buildings. And with this transformation, the surrounding buildings begin to change shape. On top of that, several angels start flying out of the transformed location. Our hero then says that a dungeon releases way more angels than a regular gate. Everyone in the meeting room gets pretty anxious with this new information. The pink-haired girl says that if something like that formed in Japan, the country would be toast. But Mizuki says with total confidence that if it's Daya, he can handle it. Our protagonist thinks to himself that even for him, a dungeon would be a massive headache, because he knows that if the gate isn't destroyed, the dungeon will just keep spreading. Everyone in the meeting room listens intently to their leader's words. Makoto then says there haven't been any cases of dungeonization since the Great War. A girl with pink hair then concludes that their job is just to defeat angels. With a very serious look, the leader confirms that this is everyone's primary mission. However, our protagonist remains focused on the meeting with a tense expression. Suddenly, his eye glows, and he seems to sense a strange presence in the air. Our hero then stands up abruptly, startling the girl next to him. His sudden movement puts everyone else in the room on high alert. Right after an alarm blares, announcing a phenomenon resembling a dungeon. Our boy then says that it looks like they're about to see the real deal. The location of the event is a large, modern building in the city of Adaba, and a moment later, the building is engulfed in a pink energy and begins to transform. Suddenly, a loud alarm starts blaring in the room, putting everyone on high alert. Then, the notice on the screen says a dungeon has appeared in Odaba, and the young heroes get really worried. Then, the large building in the city starts to change shape and becomes covered in a pink energy. At that moment, the heroes watch the images while trying to figure out what to do in this situation. With that, the commander asks if that's really a dungeon, showing he's quite surprised. But the girl confirms there's no mistake and stares at the screen with a very focused look. Soon, her pink-haired friend questions how she can be so sure about this phenomenon. He then points his finger and warns that several angels are already coming out of that strange structure. The young man is in shock, and his expression shows that the danger is much greater than they expected. With that, dozens of winged creatures appear in the sky and start flying over the buildings in the area. At that moment, the monsters spread throughout the city, showing off their super weird smiles. The girls are terrified to see that there are more than 100 enemies appearing at once. But the protagonist crosses his arms and says he'll handle all these adversaries alone. The leader wonders if the young demon king really intends to face all the opponents. He then smiles and admits that the boy is probably capable of handling this situation on his own. Then, a mischievous smile appears in the back of the room, revealing that someone new is watching. Then, a blonde man comments that the rumors about a talented newcomer were indeed true. He stares intently at the hero and realizes the young man has already earned the respect of many people there. The young man stares at the stranger and asks who he is, because he didn't sense his presence before. With that, the girls get a scare and wonder how long that guy had been sitting there. At that moment, the leader sighs deeply, showing he's really tired of the current problems. With that, he introduces the blonde man as reinforcement sent directly from the United States headquarters. This guy's name is George Matsuda, and he sports a smile that makes the heroes suspicious. Then, the girl complains that headquarters is meddling where they weren't invited, yet again. He then becomes thoughtful as he observes the place and seems to be plotting something in secret. But the agent says that having extra help to face the angels is never a bad idea. Then, the young woman makes a face, showing she doesn't trust this new member one bit. With that, the blonde man points to the protagonist and announces he'll be taking him as his personal assistant. But the Demon King just stays calm and stares at the stranger with a very piercing gaze. Then, the new ally lets out a smirk and seems satisfied with his choice. But he mentions the Japanese proverb that says a picture is worth 1,000 words. Then, the hero observes the dungeon from the top of a building as the wind blows very strongly. At that moment, the group stays away from the place because the area has become far too dangerous. With that, the girl notices that the foreigner is very cautious about this whole situation. He then raises a finger, signaling that something big is about to happen in the sky. But soon, a fighter jet crosses the clouds at high speed right over their heads. At that moment, the warrior is surprised and wonders if that's really necessary right now. With that, the vehicle performs a maneuver and aims a heavy missile at the center of that building. Then, the projectile travels through the air, leaving a trail of smoke as it approaches the target. Then, a giant explosion hits the structure, making everything shake with the force of the impact. At that moment, the smoke rises high, but the young man continues to watch the result of the heavy attack. With that, the warrior asks if all that destruction was really a direct order from the new ally. Then, the blonde man calmly confirms everything, while the others are startled by his recklessness. But the foreigner questions what the difference would be between using a missile or creating explosions with magic. At this, the brown-haired young woman is left speechless and tries to understand this guy's crazy logic. At that moment, the building remains enveloped in black lightning and a very strange purple energy, but the structure is changing shape, and several monsters appear at its base. Then, a bizarre creature shows its sharp teeth and seems ready to cause real chaos. With that, the hero decides to act and announces he'll also show what a demon king is capable of. At that moment, he activates a giant magic circle, leaving everyone around him completely stunned. But the blonde man is shocked to realize the boy is using a level 4 spell all by himself. Then, the young man concentrates his energy at his fingertips and prepares a very powerful spell. Then, a tornado of purple power hits the top of the building and begins to quickly undo the dungeon. With that, the whirlwind of energy spins with surreal force, swallowing everything in its path. At that moment, the winged creatures try to escape, but are pulled into that magical gale. But one of the monsters struggles as its body is affected by the pressure of that ability. Then, the ally comments that the young man's power goes far beyond any rumor he's ever heard. With that, the girls are relieved and admire the incredible strength the protagonist is displaying. But the spell continues to act on the structure, seeming to cleanse all that corruption. Then, white smoke begins to rise, showing that the danger from that dungeon is being brought under control. George observes that even with the missile and the magic, the dungeon remains intact in the building. At this, the American warns that there's no other way, and they'll have to go into that place now. But the girls are in shock to see that the two of them intend to invade the tower immediately. Then, the group observes the courtyard that leads directly to the entrance of that bizarre structure. With that, they all start running toward the danger as dust kicks up along the path. But several angels continue to appear in the sky, flying over the area with very bad intentions. At that moment, the young woman screams in despair upon seeing that a new wave of monsters has arrived. He then explains with a very serious look that this is exactly how a dungeon works. Then, the foreign reinforcement focuses his vision, showing he's ready to fight for real. Then, the blonde man jumps into the middle of the battle and says he's also going to show something incredible today. With that, the guy clenches his fists, and a blue energy begins to glow with great force. He then activates magic circles on his wrists and flashes a smile of someone who's about to cause trouble. At that moment, The girls are impressed with the technical skill that the alley possesses, but the winged opponents approach and try to surround the warrior in the middle of the courtyard. With that, the American prepares his strike, showing he's not the least bit worried. Then, he delivers a powerful punch that lands squarely on the face of one of the white monsters. But the impact is so strong, the creature is thrown backward with surreal speed. At this, the man mocks the enemy's slowness and continues his attack without losing rhythm. Then, the magic charge punch crushes the angel's defense, causing considerable damage. With that, the blonde ally advances on the next target, showing his mastery in combat. The blonde man continues to attack the angels with his fists, charged with blue energy and great speed. With that, the magic circle on his wrist glows intensely as he prepares a devastating punch. At this, the girl realizes he's freezing the enemies to prevent them from regenerating. Then, the ally smiles confidently because he knows his combat plan is working. He delivers a powerful upward strike and releases a magical discharge that hits the target head on. At that moment, the monster's body begins to shatter as if it were made of pure glass. But the fighter clenches his fists again, and his glove becomes enveloped in a very strong, icy aura. He clears the area with ease and comments that this part of the mission is almost resolved. Suddenly, a bizarre angel tries to surprise the warrior from behind with a very fast move. But the American reinforcement notices the move and dodges the attack, joking that it was a close call. Then, he tells his friend that his main ability is still on cooldown. So, the young heroine takes advantage of the opening and launches a pink slash of light at the winged giant. The impact hits the creature's chest with such precision that it's left completely unable to react. With that, the gray-haired girl sheathes her sword as the opponent splits in half. The monster's remains fall onto the lawn and begin to vanish as the dust settles. The blonde man praises his partner's performance, admitting her attack was really good, but she just looks back and returns the compliment, saying he did great too. He then proudly states that he ranked 3rd in the world for angel hunting. At this, little Mizuki gets super excited, remembering she had seen his name on the list. The guy winks and guarantees that this year's numbers will change after this battle. He observes the allies' gloves and notices they function like a very potent mana blade. With that, the American is very impressed and praises the quick perception the boy just demonstrated. Then, he reveals that the name of this weapon is Monicestus and shows off the equipment with a smile. At this, the girls admit it's the first time they've seen something like that used in a real fight. But the blonde man explains that the item is still a prototype, difficult to use because of its very short range. With that, the protagonist notes that the power is high, but a lack of stamina seems to be the weak point. At that moment, the group takes the first step into the purple mist that is covering the entire ground. Then, the heroes advance with determination toward the building that has been completely transformed by the energy. They finally arrive at the dungeon's entrance and feel a pressure coming from the bizarre structure. With that, the young demon king calmly observes the environment as the wind blows this mysterious aura. Soon, the 4 of them enter the place and realize that reality inside seems to be very distorted. At this, the foreigner lets out a smirk and notes that the boy showed no hesitation upon entering. But little Mizuki starts to feel sick and shows she's very scared by this heavy atmosphere. At that moment, the hallway ahead is filled with a pink smoke that gives everything a strange look. Then, the girl can't handle the pressure of the place and starts feeling ill because of the accumulated energy. With that, the hero explains that she's suffering from otherworld sickness and will soon get used to it. But the young woman continues to feel nauseous and feels her body rejecting this entire mana-charged atmosphere. He observes the situation and realizes that the dungeon's environment is truly very hostile to humans. At this, the little one agrees that the scenery there doesn't resemble the normal streets of Tokyo at all. Then, the protagonist states that a dungeon is literally another world filled with magical energy. The girls observe the atmosphere while little Mizuki's eyes spin from so much nausea. He explains that she'll understand everything if she studies more magic, but the young woman can barely stand up. George gets curious about the source of so much knowledge and warns that the monster's reception has arrived. Walking down the hallway, the group hears heavy footsteps coming toward them through the smoke. Several angels emerge at the end of the hall and stare at the heroes with very dangerous intentions. The protagonist gives a wicked smile, showing he's ready to take down all the opponents. Two winged creatures charge forward, but they don't know the terrible fate that awaits them now. Shivering from the cold, the girls realize the temperature of the place has dropped very suddenly. The hero asks if they want to see his ice magic as a freezing aura appears around him. Dozens of enemies surround the warriors inside the dungeon and try to intimidate the intruders. With a fixed gaze, the young man shows that the number of opponents makes no difference at all. Activating a giant magic circle on the floor, he releases a wave of blue energy throughout the room. Walking, the Demon King causes sparks of power to appear as he moves forward. Ice spikes begin to sprout from the walls, catching the monsters by surprise in the middle of their attack. George is stunned to see the boy use a level 3 spell over such a vast area. The angels try to escape but are hit head-on by icy spears that appear out of nowhere. Instantly freezing, one of the white intruders gets trapped in a solid block of pure ice. Several enemies are defeated at the same time, as the hero's magic consumes the entire environment. With a simple gesture of his fingertips, the young man decides to finish the job once and for all. At that moment, the adversaries shatter into 1,000 pieces, showcasing the hero's absolute power. At this, two angels leap to attack, but the hero just watches their movement without a single worry. Then, young Mizuki holds out her hand and says she also wants to participate in this great battle against the monsters. With that, she creates a pink, cubed-shaped barrier that very efficiently traps the two angels in midair. At that moment, the girl concentrates all her energy to keep the enemies trapped inside that structure. Watching the adversaries try to escape, she realizes that the power of her technique is working very well. The hero lets out a satisfied laugh and comments that her evolution in these few days has been surprising. At this, the monster's face begins to be contorted by the incredible pressure the little one is exerting with her magic. Struggling under the weight of the attack, the angel is completely crushed, with no chance to react in that tense moment. Surprised by her own power, the girl lets out a sigh, showing she's still getting used to all of this. Meanwhile, the enemy's look shows pure terror upon realizing that these young people's strength is something out of the ordinary. Soon, her silver-haired friend leaps with agility and uses her light weapon to finish the job in the air. At that moment, the little one focuses again and prepares another energy discharge to ensure the group's victory. Exploding in an intense pink light, the girl's strike illuminates the entire hall of that bizarre and dangerous tower. With that, the magic barrier dissolves into several brilliant particles as the immediate danger is eliminated. Appearing right behind her, the experienced warrior comments that her final move was a bit careless, but she soon admits that her partner has become much stronger than she was before this special training. At this, the young woman gets emotional from her companion's praise and realizes all her effort has been worth it so far. The foreigner watches the scene intrigued and wonders if these young people are really just rookies. The young man explains that this is just the natural result of having received his rigorous training. The blonde man remains silent for a moment as he tries to process the boy's incredible level of power. The blonde man thinks about the training as he watches the group advance through the dark hall. With that, the warrior asks if something is wrong, but he assures her that everything is under control. At this, the heroes continue to walk with firm steps and feel the energy of the place increasing. At that moment, a giant horde of angels blocks the path, showing that the fight will be tough. Then, the foreigner comments that the enemies just keep coming, and the young man decides to go all the way. With that, the protagonist activates a magic circle of flames and prepares a fire element attack. He then unleashes a blast of burning fire that tears through the hallway and hits several winged monsters. At this, the opponents are engulfed by the intense flames and end up being quickly defeated. At that moment, the gray-haired young woman fears being surrounded, but the little one trusts in the hero's power. Then, the girl's eyes shine with determination as she sees the Demon King handling everything by himself. With that, little Mizuki celebrates the leader's strength while the blonde man watches everything very seriously. Soon, the ally questions if the Japanese perception of angels isn't a bit too naive, but the young man retorts that it's a problem if they can't even beat the low-level ones. He then walks with determination as the American reinforcement realizes that strong humans are rare there. At this, the protagonist warns that if they continue with that mindset, they won't handle what comes next. Suddenly, a black hole appears in the middle of the hall and begins to suck all the light from the environment. At that moment, the hero realizes they've fallen into a very dangerous spatial distortion trap. With that, the veteran breaks into a cold sweat upon noticing the situation has gotten completely out of their control. Then, an arm pulls the girl into the void, and she screams desperately for help. But her companion tries to act fast upon seeing her friend being taken by that dark portal. Suddenly, a distortion pulls the group apart, separating the heroes in the middle of that bizarre pink hall. At this, the hero ends up being pulled into a dark void while trying to understand the situation. But the girls start to panic and shout the protagonist's name as they watch him disappear into the portal. At that moment, the young man tells his companions to protect themselves, as the danger is now unpredictable. Then, the scene changes and the hero is thrown onto the floor of a completely unknown and isolated room. With that, he gets up and realizes there are no visible exits in that strange place. Soon, the blonde man confirms that the group has been separated and shows he's very worried about what's to come. Suddenly, a blinding purple light appears at the end of the hallway, revealing new winged enemies. At this, several monsters emerge from the smoke and surround the two warriors with very threatening looks. But the highlight is a giant angel that appears right behind them, imposing great fear with its size. At that moment, the protagonist calmly observes everything and realizes they've entered a monster nest. With that, the American sweats nervously, knowing he can't use large-scale magic in there. Then, the colossal creature opens its wings, showing that the situation for the pair has become very complicated. He observes that there are 5 common-level opponents guarding the entrance to that dark hall. But the young demon king just analyzes the battlefield while keeping his expression very focused. At this, the foreign reinforcement starts counting the adversaries and notes that the fight will be very exhausting. At that moment, the angels position themselves for combat, showing they won't give anyone a break. With that, the veteran identifies 2 new models that possess the bizarre ability to teleport. But everyone's main concern is that giant leading the troop with a very sinister look. Then, the ally wonders if that enormous creature is yet another unknown species of angel. George readies his gloves as blue energy glows with great intensity on his fists. At that moment, the protagonist warns that they can't let their guard down and intends to end this all at once. With that, the American notices the hero's concern and asks if he's scared for the girls. The young man just keeps his gaze fixed as memories of his friends flash through his mind. At this, he visualizes their smiles and knows it's still too early for them to be gone. Then, the ally comments that for a sovereign of darkness, the young man is very dedicated to his companions. But the hero retorts that a true leader must always fulfill their responsibilities. With that, the demon king states that positive results are what truly define a master. At that moment, dozens of angels charge furiously toward the pair in the center of that bizarre hall. Then, the blonde man lets out a smirk and admits he'd love for his bosses to hear that speech. At this, the protagonist lets out a war cry and prepares a special technique to clear the entire area. With that, an intense green glow explodes from the floor, blinding all the opponents around them. At that moment, several mana tornadoes appear out of nowhere and begin to destroy everything they encounter. The creatures cry out in pain as they are thrown far away by that powerful wind. At this, the storm of energy continues to sweep away the enemies, showing the young man's raw strength. Suddenly, a colossal figure emerges from the shadows and stares at the warriors with a frightening look. But the veteran isn't intimidated and readies his blue aura punch to test the giant's defense. Then, he delivers a direct blow to the monster's face, causing electricity to explode on impact. At this, the fighter is shocked to notice his powerful attack caused no real damage. At that moment, the adversary shows a bizarre smile and prepares a heavy punch to counter the attack. George grinds his teeth as he feels the enemy's power. Realizing the situation is spinning out of control, the blonde fighter backs away as he faces the colossal creature that menacingly blocks the path. The winged monster fires a devastating beam of light that crosses the hall and hits the ally with full force. With that, the foreigner is thrown far by the impact and ends up crashing against the tower's rebel. But the hero remains motionless as the giant opponent approaches to attempt a final blow. The protagonist focuses his vision, showing that his patience with these angels has finally run out. Activating a red magic circle in the palm of his hand, the young man orders everything around him to be burned. At that moment, the giant creature becomes desperate as it feels the incredible heat coming from that spell. A column of intense flames engulfs the adversary, illuminating the entire hallway with destructive power. The veteran watches the scene from his knees, stunned to see the boy easily defeated the new model. At this, the American questions how he can fire such strong spells without using special enhancers. But the young demon king faces his ally and states clearly that he doesn't need any of that to fight. The blonde man falls silent as he analyzes the hero's face, seeming to hide a serious secret. At that moment, he remembers when the young man was taken to the hospital because of an energy overload. With that, the atmosphere in the pink hallway becomes tense as the truth about the past begins to emerge. Then, the agent admits that the talk about reinforcements was just an excuse to investigate the boy. He smiles and realizes the suspicions were wrong because the protagonist possesses a natural gift. At this, the hero crosses his arms while the blonde man regrets having lost an important lead in the case. The foreigner then bows his head and offers a sincere apology for having doubted the young man's talent. At that moment, the young man asks if this is his real mission, and the man thanks him for understanding everything. Outside, we see several guards down on the ground after the brutal attack that hit the city's entrance. At this, the young man comments that if they keep depending on those enhancers, humanity won't last very long. At that moment, he says they need to regroup with their partner and the rest of the group in the dungeon soon. Then, a blue holographic map appears, revealing the entire internal structure of that bizarre building. With that, the young man observes the digital corridor while trying to locate his companion's exact position. Soon, the radar detects the two warriors surrounded by several winged monsters on a very distant floor. He then gives a smile of relief and states that he's finally found the lost girls. But his foreign ally gets a scare upon seeing that the boy is preparing a very dangerous technique. At this, a giant purple magic circle spreads across the floor, releasing a heavy spiritual pressure. At that moment, the Demon King concentrates a sphere of dark mana between his very focused hands. Then, the protagonist fires a beam of black energy that pierces through the ceiling and floors with ease. With that, the attack opens a huge hole in the structure as everything around it begins to crumble. Meanwhile, inside the tower, the young woman tries to survive the constant siege of those white opponents. Soon, the girls are cornered in the middle of the hall by dozens of angels with cruel gazes. At this, the monsters advance with great speed, showing they won't leave any way out for them. But the gray-haired girl wields her blade of light and prepares for the ultimate fight there. At that moment, a creature leaps over the furniture and tries to hit the distracted little warrior. With that, her friend screams desperately for her to watch out for the strike coming directly from the sky. Then, young Mizuki extends her arm and complains that this wave of enemies seems to never end. Suddenly, a stake of dark energy appears in the middle of the room, startling them both during the battle. The mana stake hits the angels head-on, and the girls watch everything without understanding the attack at all. At this, the young woman wonders what that energy was that appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the pink hallway. Then, the protagonist appears in front of them with the blonde man, showing he's finally arrived for the rescue. With that, the hero apologizes for the delay and flashes a very confident smile for his relieved friends. At that moment, the two allies observe the situation and realize the girls went through a tough ordeal. But the girls are in shock, and one of them can't even react upon seeing her savior standing there in front of her. Soon, The gray-haired girl runs with all her speed toward the Demon King. She touches the young man's chest and says she's very happy to see he wasn't hurt in the confusion. The hero looks at his partner calmly and realizes she was indeed very worried about his life. At this, the warrior blushes completely, showing a very strong feeling for the group's leader in that place. George watches the scene with a laugh on his face and admits he's a little envious of all that attention. Then, the group gathers in the middle of the hall while they discuss the next important step of the current mission. But little Mizuki crosses her arms and states that she already knew her partner would be fine in the end. With that, her short-haired friend looks away, showing she's very embarrassed by her comment. At that moment, an image from the past flashes in her mind, showing the young man in a large portal of light. Then, we see a sad memory of a girl crying a lot while watching that old scene. At this, the gray-haired young woman becomes thoughtful, and her expression shows she's holding a secret grudge. But the hero places a hand on her shoulder, showing he's there to give all the necessary support now. He looks at his companion with a protective gaze and assures her that nothing bad will happen to the group. Then, the trial prepares to continue, and little Mizuki remains very surprised by this strange atmosphere. At this, little Mizuki's mouth drops wide open, and she's completely shocked by what she just heard. With that, the young woman stares at the boy with a very irritated look, seeming to want a quick explanation. Then, the girl asks how he found them, and he replies that he just tracked their magical energy. At that moment, the warrior questions if that means he always knows where they are hiding. But the hero gives a smirk and states with all the calm in the world that it's very easy to do that. At this, his companion makes a startled face and seems to not be enjoying this new information one bit. Then, her brown-haired friend is overjoyed, but the other shows that she found this very strange. With that, the protagonist takes a firm step, showing he has no time for idle chat. At that moment, the young man says they all need to hurry and begins to lead the group down the corridor. He then runs ahead while the others try to keep up with the fast pace inside the dungeon. Suddenly, several winged monsters appear in their path and try to stop the hero's advance. But the leader unleashes a discharge of blue energy that hits the opponents and quickly clears the way. At this, the white adversaries are torn to pieces by the force of the blow and turned to dust in the air. With that, the veteran observes the scene and admits that the boy's power continues to be impressive. Then, the young man looks at the girls and warns that they need to learn to handle this on their own soon. At that moment, the blonde man asks what the Demon King thinks will happen from here on out. He then states that the world is about to repeat the disaster that happened 600 years ago. With that, the American agent asks if he's talking about an all-out war against the angels. At this, the young man explains that the current atmosphere is identical to what he felt before that ancient conflict. Then, the young woman falls silent as they run, realizing that the future seems very frightening. A memory from the past shows angels coming out of a portal in the sky to invade the world. At this, the winged creatures surround a man lying on the ground in a very desolate desert. But in the present, little Mizuki looks ahead as the group continues running through the tower. The blonde Allie looks at the protagonist with a doubtful expression and seems not to believe him. He then asks how the hero knows this, and the young man says he is a demon king after all. With that, the American lets out a loud laugh, mocking his teammate's answer. But the man stops laughing and questions if the young man is actually being serious about this. Then, the group arrives at a strange door, and the young woman says that it's the dungeon's core. The leader confirms it and warns that they need to defeat the guardian to be able to leave the place. At this, little Mizuki becomes very worried upon hearing that a new challenge awaits them just ahead. She understands that the guardian is the final boss, and the blonde man wonders if such a thing really exists. But the hero doesn't waste time with doubts and tells the group to get ready to go in now. With that, the young man walks toward the dark portal, which spins with a very bizarre energy. Then, the rest of the team follows their leader into that black hole without the slightest hesitation. At that moment, the warrior faces the portal with determination, showing she's ready to fight. the young woman is pulled into the purple whirlpool, as the pressure in the place increases significantly. With that, she finally arrives in the dungeon boss's room and prepares for what's to come. At this, the heroine observes the environment and realizes that this place is indeed the core of the entire tower. Then, the group gathers before a giant door that glows with a very intense golden light. At that moment, the leader extends his hand and begins to push the heavy gate to reveal the boss. At that moment, a giant suit of armor emerges from the bright light, leaving all the heroes paralyzed by its size. With that, the blonde ally is left speechless and comments that the creature is truly enormous. At this, the golden monster looks down on the group, while emitting a pressure that makes the whole floor tremble. Then, little Mizuki observes the opponent and thinks that such a large body must not have much speed. But the giant wastes no time and prepares a devastating punch that travels through the air like a meteor. In that instant, the heavy attack comes crashing down and looks like it will crush the young heroes without any mercy. With that, a giant explosion hits the area, raising a curtain of smoke that covers the entire hall. At that moment, the dungeon boss shows off its golden helmet and seems satisfied with the deadly blow. But the protagonist holds back the colossal fist with just one hand, displaying surreal physical strength. With that, the young warrior is trembling with fear as she tries to understand how he stopped that attack. Soon, the American goes into a total panic and states that there's no chance they can even touch that thing. Then, the hero calmly looks back and realizes that his companions are truly terrified. At this, he remembers his true identity as a demon king and how he used to handle this type of threat. But the gray-haired girl closes her eyes for a second and tries to catch her breath in the tense situation. At that moment, she suggests the group create a strategy focused on the young man in order to survive. With that, the heroine shouts that their job is to fight together and not just depend on a single person. Then, the veteran shouts that it's impossible to defeat a monster of this level with their current abilities. But the Demon King just listens to everything in silence while maintaining total control of the insane battle. At this, the young man flashes a confident smile, showing he has a perfect plan to finish off the giant. He then orders everyone to forget the consequences and give it their all to finish this opponent. At that moment, the young warrior stands before the armored giant as it emits a heavy aura. With that, she thanks him for the support